Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday morning D&D show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Welcome. Say hello.
Hello. I feel like, did you have a different voice the last time we did a show?
Oh, yeah. It was awful.
So this is the real Jordan.
This
is back.
Real Jordan, although shaved. So a lot of people are freaking out on the internet
Jordan.
because I posted a video. The play that I'm in, Puffs, I didn't have to shave. The director said I didn't have to, but I was like, I've kind of been thinking about just like trimming up the beard a little bit for the play because I'm technically supposed to be like 13 years old. Even though it's a parody, I don't need to be 13 years old. So I was like, I'll try it. And I like trimmed back too far. And then I was like, it's all coming off. And then I instantly regretted it. So we're gonna grow back something before June. We'll see.
My hope is that you just said the play is Puffs. So I'm hoping this is a Puff the Magic Dragon play.
No, this is a Hufflepuff play.
Okay.
It's a parody on Harry Potter. It's very funny. It's really funny. So it's called Puffs. And it is the 7 years of adventures in the school, but from the Puffs' perspective.
Gosh.
Or the Hufflepuffs. But they can't use that because it's all trademarked. So the houses are Brave, Smart, Snake, and Puff. And it's just like, you're like the worst of the worst at this school. Like, what's going on? But it's so funny. We're having a lot of good time with it. Oh, is there an echo? What's going on?
Oh, no. Is it from my side? Could be my side.
No, well, it's in my chat, so I'm assuming it's me. But I don't know. I only have one stream of audio.
And is it your voice or my voice echoing? Or both?
He said I have an echo. Victor. Good old Victor. Oh, welcome, Victor.
Victor's here normally.
Okay, so we will continue. You might have two windows of the stream open, Victor. I've done that in the past. And I was like, you have an echo. And they're just like, I don't. And then I'm like, I have two windows open. Welcome, everybody. Man, really excited to be back here. We both did a quick vacation. I think you went and fought some people with some swords.
I put armor on and did some battle.
Nice.
On a Saturday when it was nice and super windy, but the temperature was finally great, and I enjoyed it immensely. And then I drove home, and I watched the Twitters as you finally got home, and then you started prepping for Doctor Strange.
Oh my gosh. It was the hardest thing to stay away from that movie. I'm a big Sam Raimi fan, and for him to come out of the... he hasn't directed in a long time. And so it's like, I'm going to direct this Doctor Strange movie. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for that. Thank you so much, Moa Peach, for the donation. You're really pushing for that Drow Patreon game. We're gonna work on it. I gotta get to July where I have a little more free time, but I do want to do that. So thank you so much. And then, so Sam Raimi, and I'm like, but I had to stay off the internet, which is not what I do. I am actively on the internet all the time, trying to I don't know, fill that void in my life that that we all have.
I live and breathe it.
Yeah. So, but we found an emergency babysitter. They came over. They watched Oliver. Me and the wife ran to the theater. I almost went. What day was it? So we got back Saturday night, and we put Oliver to bed, and I was like I might go right now. And she was like, if you love and value the relationship you have with your wife, you will not abandon me after a long drive to go watch a movie. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we went.
You're like,
the next
day.
But
I like this movie enough that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, yeah. Just so you know, I'm not going to, but I want you to know that I am making a sacrifice
It's
right now.
It's a hard choice.
It was fun though.
I have not seen it. Okay, so I know you're not going to spoil.
No, I won't spoil anything. But it's not the Marvel. It felt like Sam Raimi was hired to do a Marvel movie, which is funny because he did the first 3 Spider-Mans.
Yes.
With Tobey Maguire, and those
Sony,
the first one didn't feel like a Sam Raimi movie, so I was like, okay, you're kind of like contract director for hire. The second one had spooky elements. And I say spooky, but I say Sam Raimi spooky, where it's the camera angles he likes to use. And then Doctor Strange 2 had more than that Spider-Man 2 movie, but it still it just wasn't. I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird choice, but overall, I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. Doctor Strange is my favorite superhero, so I love
that you really like Sam Raimi, only because I'm going to say I have a connection, but it's not actually true. It's a lie. But the Raimis are from Michigan. And when they started doing their filming stuff, they were with Bruce Campbell in Michigan over on the east side of the state, and they started doing their video stuff. And I've been a super fan ever since I realized they live in the same state.
Oh, yeah.
Way back 20 years. So Bruce Campbell's my favorite B actor ever. I watch everything he's ever in, and I love him.
Awesome.
And I love the Raimis, and I love everything they do. And I've watched all their like pre-movie stuff they would release at the university over there, and
cool.
run like nights of where they would just, and they were terrible but good in that terrible way. And so I just love that there's other people out there that like Raimi's.
Oh yeah, I mean, as an indie filmmaker, like Sam Raimi is an icon because he's the guy that made it. You know, he filmed Evil Dead for like $100 in the middle of the woods, and it blew up. And he was like, "It's you." Evil Dead 2. There's a couple of really great shots where the evil is like chasing Bruce Campbell, and you can see the gym. They're in a high school gym where they're filming it, but they built the set within that gym. And so, like, you look up and you can see the rafters and stuff of the gym. And I was like, that's so cool.
In the book, they talk about the car all the time. The
car's in every movie.
Car that they have. And they were like, it was their car. And it was like all the stuff. And they talk about how weird it was to ask, like, an actress to come out into the middle of the woods where they were filming the first one.
Yeah.
And they were just out there. And they're not... it's not a studio. They're just out there, and we're going to film a movie. And it was like the craziest, weirdest thing to do, but they were in it, and they love it, and I just love that whole thing. There's a lot of good books out there. The one I was reading was Bruce Campbell's kind of accounting of, what was going on and all the stuff he remembered, and it was really cool.
You should read
That's awesome.
the If Chins Could Kill, the Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
It's so good. The Oldsmobile, the Delta 88, is in every Sam Raimi movie he's done. It was Uncle Ben's car in Spider-Man, and in this one it's in there. It's really good. So he puts it in every movie. And I think that's why I like Sam Raimi, because like I like finding the Easter eggs that I know he likes to put in there. One of them being Bruce Campbell. He puts them in all his movies.
Bruce is usually in every single one. I can't think of one he wasn't, but
and sometimes Sam Raimi's brother, who I don't really like, is in a lot of the movies.
But he also plays a bit part. It was weird. I didn't realize what his brother looked like for the longest time. Then realized, that's his brother.
Yeah.
I knew they were brothers, and I knew they did all this stuff together. I didn't put two and two together until much later. But
it was fun.
Cool.
So I would encourage you to go see Doctor Strange. It's really all this multiverse stuff.
Yeah, everybody's doing it.
We'll talk about it. Like, it's really like such a creative freedom to be like, I want to do this kind of a story. I want to do this kind of a story. I want to use a different actor for this character. And it's like, it's okay. We just kind of say it's another universe, and people are like, that's fine. But you still have this like beloved character. Mm-hmm. I just finished a review of the Doomed Forgotten Realms, which is a version of the realms where all of the bad things that happened in 5e didn't have heroes to stop them, so they all happened. So Tiamat's walking across the planet. Nice. You have all of these demon lords running around in the Underdark, and then they've all tied it back to Vecna is sitting in Waterdeep, the Lord of Toril. And you can play an adventure here. And I was like, I think that's really cool, because the realms is getting to the point now where I think we need to kind of acknowledge that it's a property that could be multiverse, and people could take it and be like, oh, I want to play in that version, not necessarily this one, but that one. So I like that.
I like that idea too, because you can explore more things, and whether it works or not, when you explore that branch, there's still the beloved, we're in universe 616, or we're in universe 925, the way Marvel kind of numbers theirs, or like you said, the Doomed Forgotten Realms, which I think is cool to have different.
And
there's
it was
the Jordan Forgotten Realms.
Exactly. Well, and that's the point, right? It's like every DM that runs a version of any established campaign setting, that's your version of it, and because like the heroes that I have in my game, they don't pop up in other games, except no, I had a couple of characters I played. my Acquisitions Incorporated character showed up in a game that I ran because I wanted an NPC, and I was like, this will be fun. I'll tie it all together. Espen will come back. It'll be great. And so that was fun. But yeah. Awesome possum, man. So we got books coming out this week.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday, right?
That is Monsters of the Multiverse, which is a weird one because it's out, but it wasn't out on D&D Beyond. And I thought that was really weird because if it's out in the, like, it's clearly finished, you put it on paper. You know, it's not like
in a slipcase on a shelf at the moment. I saw it. I was there.
So I just thought that was a little odd that the book was done, but we decided to wait for the individual book to come out. And a lot of people are pointing that was like a cash grab. Like, oh, they want to sell more books. And I was like, yeah, but like they would sell more books if they offered it as both digital and as, you know, I don't know, like, and as a singular book. Like, I feel like they would make more money rather than trying to make this, like, forcing people to rebuy Tasha's, which you don't need to do, and rebuy something else. I can't remember what book it is, but do you have a reservation? Are you in? Are you buying it?
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if I'm grabbing that one because I do have the regular Mordenkainens, and I'm sure I'll be able to look up, you know, some of the new stuff and some of the things there if we need them. And I may get it because the slipcase did look good. Like when I'm
getting it without the slipcase. That's my point.
Yeah,
is it's coming out this Tuesday without the slipcase. So I just bought the original, but the slipcase version came out in like January.
Yeah,
like that's my point. I guess
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the one that's the combined one.
Oh, you want to get the fancy one?
I didn't pull the trigger yet. I was there last Saturday and I had it in my hand before I picked up a different purchase that we'll talk about later. But I put it back and I saw another thing. I thought, well, maybe I'll do this. And I grabbed the things next to it and checked out with, you know, $150 worth of books.
That's cool.
That's, you know, on a Saturday after I was done. So, so I don't know. I do think I like the idea of it and what is in it. Because I kind of want to see where they're going with all the new monster books, because obviously that's how they're going to organize. And
this is the precursor to like 5.56e that we've always been talking about, which I want to give it a better name than like, you know, this or that. We don't know the name yet. I want to just say like
I would wish
D&D Evolution. Is that what we were saying?
Yeah. Why haven't they? Their marketing team should be on top of it, because if they don't, then your community names it, and then they can't, you know. They can try to name it D&D Next, and then everybody calls it, you know, 5e.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
So, Monsters of the Multiverse coming out May 17th. What's interesting about this, though, is I got an email from Fantasy Grounds, and then I believe D&D Beyond is the same way. They announced this. They're removing the purchase. You can no longer purchase Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes after the 17th. Because all of that stuff is basically in Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse, tweaked. You know, I think they removed like the negative stat blocks for the orc and stuff like that. Specifically, D&D Beyond said that if you buy the new book after the 17th, you will have all of the stuff that's in Volo's. It'll kind of be like combined. But that's that price tag of digital purchases, right? Where we don't own the content. And granted, like, I don't think they're probably not making any more prints of Volo's Guide at this point, or especially after this comes out. But the idea that you could go out and buy, you could still go buy a physical book of Volo's.
Right. So. And if you had already bought it, did it say that it still remains?
If you already have it remains. It from you. Yeah. You just can't. Yeah, correct. It just can't be bought after that. So
nobody else is getting it again, or nobody else that didn't get it before that would be able to buy it. They would only have the other
Which option. If it has the same information, I get it. But there's still that weird thing where we look at that and you're like, you're right, we don't actually own that, you know? And it's kind of like movies and music and stuff. And I have a lot of games on Steam. Lucian knows this. Yeah, probably everybody knows this. We play a lot of Steam games.
Yes.
And that's really the same thing. Like, I got a notification that one of my games is being removed. I will still have it, but nobody else can buy it anymore because of some weird licensing thing. I think Neverwinter Nights 2 is like that on Steam for some reason. Like, I have it, but I don't think other people can buy it anymore.
And there could be a great apocalypse at some point where if that company goes under and you bought a bunch of digital material from them, they shut everything down.
Yeah,
you may not have any of that stuff anymore ever again. You know,
yeah,
like
you would like to think that they would like send you something, but
Yeah.
they have no obligation to do that. And so
yeah, if they just lose all their money or they go out of business, there's nobody to sue or there's nobody to say, hey, where's my stuff? They're just like, hey, that's an empty warehouse. You can go look for your stuff, but it ain't in there.
Yeah, go look for your ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So again, I like physical books because I like collecting them, but you could say, hey, my house burned down and I lost all that too. You know, like there's a lot of in the era that we're now like banning books and stuff again too. Like it's easy to have history written by the victors and then we forget like, oh yeah, this happened and stuff, you know. Well, but with piracy nowadays, I don't think we'll ever really not have access to the data, But
what you get with digital also is usually convenience and quality, usually because it stays in a high quality, and it never typically malfunctions or breaks down or dies due to use. Whereas if everything's on discs and books, if I open my book 500 times in my game, eventually that whole thing just dies.
It's gonna fall apart,
and I have to go buy my new Dungeon Master's Guide because I'd opened the other one up so long. I mean, we've all seen the old people had their old 3rd edition or their old AD&D books that have just have basically fallen apart over the years just through use. Whereas if it's all digital, that's not a factor for you. So that each one has like its positives and negatives, and one's more clutter and one's heavy to move around. If you got to move from house to house, it's a pain moving all your shelves. Yeah. I know, because I moved box after box of books, and my wife was like, why do we have books? Do you read any of them books?
It's true.
Shh, we don't ask that question.
So, yeah, and so I guess this is a decision by Wizards because obviously D&D Beyond is doing it, but Fantasy Grounds, and so I'm assuming Roll20, same thing. I don't know.
I would think, and it probably cuts down on confusion because imagine if you are new and you don't know the thing that's happened, or you weren't in. At any time, 2 years from now, you could be like, what are these 2 Mordenkainen books? Why are they different? What's going on? Do I buy both? Do I need both?
What's interesting, though, is like how many books reference Volos? And so they'll have that little
that could be.
That little text that's like, please see Volo's Guide to Monsters. And you're like, I don't have that book, Yeah. They might change it digitally. Who knows?
Yeah, very interesting.
Also, with D&D Beyond, I caught, what's his name? Joe Starr, yeah. I caught Joe Starr, who is the guru of Mark. No, I don't know what he is. He's the media face of D&D Beyond. He took over when a bunch of people, or when Adam Bradford left, I guess.
Yeah.
But he was saying that because of the acquisition, D&D Beyond is going to be giving away Acquisitions Incorporated. So
fantastic book.
And that's another push. They really want your email. Wizards does, and so they want you to sign up. We've got these free monsters that you can get, these Spelljammer monsters. You can download them for free, but you got to sign up. And the same thing with this, where they're like, we'll give you a free book. You just got to be part of our system. So, and it's fitting. Acquisitions. I like it, and that was a great book. So I think that's really cool.
Like it, and it is good. We use it in our current campaign. Yeah. Even now, it's one that gets used quite often in our campaigns.
And then Journey Through the Radiant Citadel will be 6/21.
Soon.
There's been some June 21st. There's been some talk about that. A couple interviews here and there. It looks fun. Like I was like, it's a compendium. I was on the fence because it looked like another Candlekeep, and Candlekeep was fine.
Of adventures.
An anthology, and like Candlekeep was fine. I didn't buy Candlekeep because I was like, I just don't really need it, I guess. This one I'm more interested in, though. Like I actually am like, this looks really cool for some reason. It's maybe it is because I have this new city to play in too, the Radiant.
Yeah, I want to know about that city and the place it is and how they tie things together. I know we've talked a little bit about that, and there has been some information that's out there, how people get there and leave, and what's the history of it, and what's going on now, and what happened in the past. I'm really curious about it. So I think it's definitely one that's on my list, because I feel like from even just a lore perspective, I'm super interested in this one. Like the other ones, I don't know if I would have gotten Candlekeep if I was trying to dive more into the lore of, say, Forgotten Realms. But this one feels like I'm going to find a new spot we haven't talked about before. We're going to find something new that we haven't got to see. So there's a little bit more excitement.
Well, and and with Candlekeep Mysteries, there was a little bit about Candlekeep, but for the most, I think those adventures took you anywhere. Like it really was just, I wrote something silly, let's put it in. You're like, okay, so
yeah, and the concept's good. The idea of the book adventure, right? You're hired to go in. Magical book does something, and boom. You're on a magical, cool quest to do cool things, So I like the concept. It was a cool concept. So.
Yeah.
My other favorite one, though, was the one you ran, which I always forget the name until you say it, but the one that's on the shoreline, in the boats. And
Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I loved reading that one. I love that one. That was my favorite anthology of adventures kind of pulled together.
But and those were older adventures that they added a couple of other ones, but for the most part, I think the first 4 were actually meant to be together, one continuous thing. But you're right, and I did have a lot of fun with that one. Candlekeep Mysteries didn't feel like that, and I would agree, Radiant Citadel kind of feels more like that.
I'm hoping it feels that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Because I super enjoyed the Marshes book. That was good.
That's awesome. There was a Kickstarter I wanted to talk about, so I was looking for that, but I don't find it.
So, Journey Through the Radiant Citadel, 6/21, so basically a full month from now. You guys will be able to find that on your store shelves or order it from wherever, Amazon, D&D Beyond, all those places. And then, only just a month or two after that...
They have a date for
confirmed.
it, huh? That's cool. Spelljammer,
confirmed.
8/16.
You have to buy the slipcase. There's going to be some books in there. I'm all for it, though. They're giving it to us.
Yeah. It only comes as that slipcase, which each book is 64 pages. And so you're buying 3 64-page books.
I think Sly's been talking about this on Twitter a lot.
Well, he probably has. And we probably talked about it too. But the DMG for 5e is 500 pages. I was like, this could have been one book. But it'll be cool. Well, I like the idea that I can hand you the player stuff while I'm looking up whatever. Maybe this is an actual better format. And I think back to box sets back in the day. And they were also like that. Here's your adventure, here's your monsters, here's your player options. And, I've got Peril of the Purple Planet, which is my Adventure Crawl Classics box set. And that's actually really cool. It would be cool to have it in one book. But the more I think about it, this is actually more user-friendly at the table. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Sly Flourish was saying, battling the internet. Oh my God, it's only 64 pages. Back in the day, we used to get this. And he's like, no, here's what it was back in the day. Yeah. He's listing, it was less.
Yeah.
It was they were small things in the box. You got a wax dice with it. You got a crayon to mark your stuff off. In these, they were pretty cheap bundles of merchandise back in the day. They didn't spend a ton of money, and they didn't put their adventures in big hardcover books full of the type of art that we see today. But it's still 64 pages, and 3 of them sounds like there's still a lot of information to me.
Yeah.
And there's probably more stuff in that thing. Who knows? I don't know if there's a DM screen that comes with it, or I don't know.
There's a DM screen, yeah. So
I feel like it was a whole, almost like a starter kit, more than it was, say, a slipcase. I thought, but.
And I think as a brand of going into more campaign settings, this will make more sense, because it's not hey, I bought this Eberron book. This feels like if I show this to my players, they're just oh, what are we doing?
Yeah,
look at that.
The player
and we're
thing. You guys look at
this
that.
is D&D, but it's in space, And if I had that same thing, we're gonna play Eberron and kind of market it almost like a board game. This is what we're gonna do. It's right here. Let's go. And so
here's everything in the box.
Yeah,
pulling it out. Here's your part. Here's my part.
Minus the player's handbook and the DMG and everything else you need. But I don't know.
Still
we'll
excited.
See.
Still excited.
Jancy on chat actually mentioned that they're gonna give away Fandelver for free as well on D&D Beyond and maybe other platforms. I probably just
I bet they could maybe Roll20 or something like that.
Well, Roll20 had a thing. I got an email for it. They were like, "Hey, Phandelver's free for the month of April or something." So
yeah, I think that's a good way.
And
it's
with
a good
new
adventure.
starter sets coming out, I'm sure they're just like, give them the old one. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
so.
I think it's a great entry into D&D for anybody that's new players. That was a good one. I've heard good things about the other starter sets too, and I think they're also super viable. But I know there's a lot of positivity around Phandelver as an adventure starting out. Felt pretty good. I enjoyed playing the parts that I played. I don't think we made it all the way to the end, but I think we made it maybe like 3/4 before we kind of stopped, and I thought it was very enjoyable to play.
No, it is. It's a fun one. So
yeah,
it's a classic adventure. Yeah, excited for Spelljammer. There's lots of information that's out there already. We've already talked about it. We don't need to go into it a whole bunch. We did talk about this, and I think maybe we had an answer the last time, but Fandom still has a tabletop presence. So Fandom owned D&D Beyond. They sold D&D Beyond, but I've been seeing little blips. They're like, here's Fandom Tabletop. So they still have something. Like,
yeah.
And I was wondering if Cortex, the Cortex system that Fandom bought, went over to D&D Beyond, and it did not, because I'm now seeing advertisements for the Dragon Prince role-playing game, licensed by whoever owns Dragon Prince, and then powered by Cortex, which is what Fandom owns. So they're still doing that website. They still want you to, they have their virtual tabletop team or whatever, and they've got their Cortex website, and they want you to go play Cortex games.
Yeah. So it's not just books, and that they still have the electronic tools that support the game that they're talking about.
And that's their wheelhouse, so I assume they're going to do that. It's interesting, though, with all of their D&D Beyond programmers leaving. I wonder how successful that will be, because I don't know if the D&D Beyond team worked on the Cortex website. I kind of feel like they would have, because that's like, hey, we want to also integrate Cortex, but maybe not.
Possible. A lot of times they split teams up on stuff on products too, so maybe it was a split team.
So I haven't played Cortex. Is it fun? Have you played it?
I have not played it.
Okay. We need to do like a
I'm interested
Cortex
in this
overview.
one Dragon Prince one though. I don't know what other games are in Cortex either. I don't recall.
Well, Cortex is just like the system. It would be like Dragon Prince 5e kind of a thing.
Right. But what other
and that's the thing, is I don't
whatever?
know anything really about the Cortex system. I know they've played a little bit. In the end, it's always rolling dice. You have to really mess up a system like the Marvel one that came out recently for me to not like it. But so we'll see. But just like, it would be like, hey, we're going to do a Dragon Prince game, but it's going to be with Cypher system rules. That's kind of the same thing. But that's what they're leaning on. They really want you to say, they really want to license these properties. Like, hey, I want to do Dragon Prince. I want to do Avatar: The Last Airbender. I want to do Transformers. Those are all bad examples except for Dragon Prince, because Hasbro will not let go of Transformers.
And there is a Transformers TTRPG.
Yeah, it's coming out. Same with the Power Ranger ones that came out. So yeah.
And G.I. Joe.
Yep.
They have all three of them. Yes.
So anyway, it's interesting. So I want to read up more on Cortex, but I have lots of other indie zines and stuff that I've been reading because of the OSR movement is strong. This isn't in our notes, but now I want to talk about it. You haven't played a lot of OSR stuff. You played a couple with me, but
I played a little bit here and a little bit with a little bit of the Mutant
Crawl Classics.
Okay. More than I've done the DCC.
Yeah. So not talking about Goodman Games, because they have their own brand and they're going to be fine. But the indie OSR movement in general, a lot of people are like, is this dead? Like, has the old school renaissance happened?
The death knell.
And now we're to the point where everybody is rewriting somebody else's rules to make their version of the OSR. And it's like, yeah, but I could just use this person's rules. Like, why would I use yours? It's literally the same game. Like, we're talking about the OSR here, people. Like, it's 1974 D&D, like, right. And so I thought that was a curious question, because the people I was talking with were kind of saying, like, if the old school renaissance has already happened and people are playing old school games, it's popular. freaking whatever it's called. I can't remember it, but my OSR Old School Essentials, like that was immensely popular on Kickstarter, and now people have these books. Is there ever going to be, like, moving forward, will there be another company that's like, let's reimagine these rules again? I don't really think so. And I hearken back to when we were talking with James on our show here, Dungeon Crawl Classics, James Walls. And I was saying, like, oh, Old School Essentials, this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm kind of OSR'd. Like, I'm good. Like, I've got my retro game.
Stuff for a while,
it's called Dungeon Crawl Classics. I don't really need another one. And I was like, oh, you're right. They are all kind of the same. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think we're gonna have to really reinvent D&D?
Yeah. And I know you're a little bit deeper into that, and I know we have mostly because I'm sure Lex. You're talking to Lex all the time. I'm sure is what drives that.
Yeah. Well, we're doing a play test together, so we're playing a lot of it. Yeah.
And I think I haven't heard, so I'm thinking about that question. We're in the Renaissance. I think we are for the OSR because it is popular. But that also means at some point it'll be done. It's finite, Renaissance
you can't
period.
Reinvent
it goes
it
from start to finish, right? So maybe that happens with the OSR, the style of 70s and 80s, early 80s D&D, and doing rules that are based like that. Have we done it? Are we good? But then I'm thinking now, I'm like, well, what comes after the Renaissance D&D? There must be the next. It's like, are we into new wave 80s or something? Or like, what's the next thing after the Renaissance?
And I think that's what they're asking themselves.
Retro, industrial.
Especially the people that have marketed themselves as, I'm the retro person.
Yeah.
Either in game design, review, or anything else. Like, I think about Ben Milton, and he's like, all I do is OSR. If that doesn't, I don't want to say die, but if that, like, oh yeah, I've seen that kind of a thing. Like, you can't show the same movie over and over and things like that. I don't know.
Or at least you got to give some time before you do come back to it, because you need time so that your Renaissance can come back again at another.
Or there's always new fans,
so you could have like a 10, 15-year gap, and then it starts again or something.
I just bought a whole bunch of Call of Cthulhu stuff from the 80s, Sandy Peterson stuff, and it's not new, but it's new to me. That's why I got it. But like, is there a Call of Cthulhu Renaissance? I wouldn't say so. So cycling it back to Cortex, this makes me interested, because if Cortex is this system that could literally play anything, kind of like Cypher in a way, then is that the new direction of RPGs, where it's, I'm going to license this property so I can use Cortex to play Doctor Who. I can use rather than buying a Doctor Who game, I can use Cortex to play Alien. I can use Cortex to play this.
And I think that's exactly how the cycle was in the 70s and 80s. It was very niche, and they did niche to death, whatever it was. And then the only thing anybody knew who was coming to the space could do is be like, their big thing was, well, we're building a system that can play any genre, and you can bring your characters from Buck Rogers all the way to Knights of the Round Table, and all this stuff's going to get to come together, and we're building rules that can cover anything. And I think that's the pendulum.
That was also just like modern D20 with 3rd edition or something, where it was like,
everything is
we want to use the D20 system for everything, and it was like, sometimes it doesn't work. But
so we have that, and like Cypher's that way in some ways, and each group kind of came up. I think the one I saw on Twitter that I responded to, the one I remember was Riffs from Palladium, and Palladium was putting out these, you can play any genre book. That's how they were trying to draw people from the D&D crowds. And I was like, yes, I remember that, because I just remember, I'll be different. I have a bunch of D&D friends, but look, I have a Riffs book.
Lex and I were talking about Riffs, actually. I don't know anything about Riffs, but he was like, they made so many books and stuff, and I was like,
crazy.
This is something I need to research now. So
space robots and
and then you could combine things like, I'm going to be a wizard, I'm going to be a space marine, and then it worked somehow, maybe.
And a little bit like how cyberpunk was that idea of, you have the cyberpunk, you have the modern day guns and runners and stuff, but then you also had magic and elves and orcs and stuff. So they kind of mashed all that together in cyberpunk.
Well, not cyberpunk.
Also.
I think you're thinking of like Shadowrun and stuff.
Or Shadowrun, is where I'm going.
which it was like you use your magic to go hacking and things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a fun. That's probably a whole. I need to think about that as a topic of discussion a little more. But it intrigued me because I'm like, we always talk about, well, in my circles, people talk about the old school Renaissance OSR. It's like, oh my gosh, D&D so 5e is so popular, but all these old games are coming back, and we have a much easier access to them. And because D&D is popular, people are just searching for other RPGs. And a lot of the OSR is like name your own price. So people are just like, I'll try it. I'll download it. I'll see what it is.
I feel like the cycle, if you drew it out on paper, was we create a creative thing that tries to draw attention. It starts to get a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. Now we can license it with all these other cool things that people are like pop culture wise. And then we overdo it so that we saturate it. So now nobody's interested in it anymore because we overdid it. And now we're back to, we need to create something that starts to build momentum so that we can license it again with everything that's popular. And then we can saturate the market. And then it's like this cycle.
Well, and we've talked about this too, where it is like a 10-year cycle, sometimes 15-year cycle for some of these D&D books. And and Spelljammer is... Original Spelljammer was like, okay, people, how do we get them playing D&D again? And somebody just said, what about D&D in space? And they're like, do it. Yeah. And so that's why we have Spelljammer, is because they were trying to get more people to play Dungeons & Dragons. So,
very interesting.
That's interesting. You put a Disney show. I don't know what this is.
I was searching around on Twitter for news, and I saw an ad. There's a Disney show out there called The Quest, and it has a bunch of, I want to say preteen or just getting to teenagers dressed as if they're in Dungeons and Dragons. They've got this full-on display show they've created, and I'm assuming these kids are going to run through the quests of the realm, and Disney, throwing all the money at it, made basically what, from the trailer I watched, or at least the part I saw, it was like you stepped right into, Game of Thrones all of a sudden, and, they're going to... I assume it's part reality show and part, kind of following these kids through whatever they're going to do in their quest, and maybe there's a competition for one of them to be the hero at the end, or I don't even know. I don't. All I saw were the visuals, and they put a lot of time and money in the costumes and the creatures and all the stuff they were going to do. So I just thought, I've seen something like this before. Other shows have tried this where they would bring people in and do a reality / send them back to medieval times or send them to a fantasy world.
A kid in King Arthur's court comes to mind.
Yeah. and they've done it with the preteens. They're not like the older teens. I feel like these are the kids that have just gotten to teenagers. So my point of putting it into our notes was I wanted to kind of hear Jordan's idea about what if this kind of show was around just as you had found your teenage game that you like to play, or just as you were a teenager. Would this have been something that attracted you, this idea that somebody's putting together a thing where I can go pretend I'm a fighter or a magic user or whatever? Or did teenage Jordan not get into fantasy yet? I don't remember. I know you got into D&D later, but I don't know if you were into fantasy or what you were in teenage.
No, I was always into fantasy, and I feel like that trope is it's very old, and it's a little more evolved than you are stating.
Yeah.
Because that is, I'm a normal boy who discovered that I have amazing abilities, and I'm whisked away to a magical world, and that is most. That's Harry Potter, that's Star Wars, that's like a lot of other things.
Every fiction book.
And this is kind of the same thing, but if you could think about it, like that could also have been a video game. Like the kids go home, they log onto their video game where they have superpowers and they do all this other stuff, rather than getting like, that's Narnia. Like that is the Narnia books. We're ordinary kids. We walk into the Lion, the Witch, or the wardrobe. Now I'm a king. Like what? I have to save this world. So
and I think my specific question would be, would teenage Jordan, if they were approached that a TV show was doing this?
Oh, would I like want to be in it?
It's a TV show. They're looking for teen kids to come and do quests, And the whole thing is they want kids that are probably interested in that. You know,
Yeah.
if the kids are, they don't go down to the skate park and say, "Hey, do you guys want to do this?" They're like, "No, we love skateboarding. Do you gonna do a skateboard
No,
show?"
I was always into fantasy. Yeah.
Okay. So
I just read a lot of books
You'd have raised
as a
your
kid.
hand and been like, "Yeah, let's do
Because
this.
that's
This
what I
sounds
had.
fun."
But for some reason, I was also very religious, and D&D was like, whoa, that's like, magic.
Taboo.
Like, we can read about spells, but yeah.
There's devils in that.
Yeah, there's devils and things. So I steered clear because of my moral upbringing. But and I didn't have anybody that played it. Like, I lived in a very small town, and there was not a lot of people that played D&D, so I didn't know. But the D&D video games I played, I loved those and stuff. So no, I would totally do something like this. So
the other one I was thinking is like if they came to you and we said, we know you love Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And we're doing a show, and what we're doing is we're taking 10 teenagers from across America, and we're building all these big sets, and you guys are going to get to kind of live and breathe for a week inside.
Yeah. Who
Final
wouldn't want to do
Fantasy.
that?
And
It's
we're
like
gonna put it on
True
TV,
Dungeon.
It's like, yeah.
It's like True Dungeon at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that love that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I'm curious about this show, so we'll have to see.
I think I want to see at least the first episode, and it could be super cringe. So I'm not telling everybody to go out there and watch it. Some of these can be good, some of these can be terrible. I have no idea what this is going to be. I don't know the premise of it other than what I saw on the Twitter kind of thing, and I didn't even listen to it. I just watched it. I think I'll want to watch the first one. I have Disney Channel, so I'm assuming it's on there. I think I'll want to watch the first one just to see where they're going and what they're doing, and I hope the kids do it in a way that they sort of take it serious, not too serious, but they do take it a little serious so that they can have fun with it and do whatever. And it's not just make fun of it kind of thing, like we've seen in other stuff when people want to portray questing and fantasy worlds. They sometimes can come at it as like, oh, let's get all the basement dwellers out and let's
it's to make
jokes
fun
about
of them rather than to.
I hope it's
like,
not
yeah.
that. And I get it when they do that, but I hope it's not that. I hope it's the kids take it semi-seriously. They realize they're in a show, but they try to do the quest or they try to enjoy themselves, and maybe it'll be fun.
Well, somewhat related, I wanted to talk about this Kickstarter for. I had not heard of this, and I feel like I was dumb for not knowing this, but there's a Kickstarter for a new RPG called Die, the role-playing game, and this is based off of Die, D-I-E, the comic that came out 2017, and I think it ended in 2021. I have not read this. This is a London comic, but the comic is about people playing role-playing games, getting like tabletop games, getting sucked into that world, and they have their regular street knowledge of like, I'm a 17-year-old blah blah blah, but now I'm in this weird fantasy world. And it's kind of meta where they're like, we're making a game about the comic where they were playing a game and went anyway. But the art looks amazing. And I went and bought the first comic, and I'm going to read it because I was told that it's very good. And I'm kind of getting amped for this now. Like, this looks really cool.
Very cool.
So
that is the genre of books I am reading right now. Lit RPG is kind of what you're describing. It's the idea of lots of people on Amazon and these other places where they can self-publish, because a publisher might not think that genre is worth putting the money into, but they'll self-publish these books about we were playing a Dungeons and Dragons game and we got sucked into the game, and now what happens to that person that's now there? They have their street knowledge, but they also have their game knowledge, and their game knowledge works in the game. Like, so when they get to the game, they're like, I know how this works. I've read the book 15 ways. I know what goblins do, or I know their weakness or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they use both knowledges to be able to win. Or, and some are just like you get moved to a new world and their world has XP and leveling up. What does that mean when you go to a world that has XP and leveling up and that kind of thing? How does that change everything? And so there's a lot of these people that are exploring those kinds of ideas, kind of like the Ready Player One idea. And those
very similar.
And I love it. I love the lit RPGs. So you're talking about, a comic book that does that, I should get into it too.
Yeah, no, it's so they're not too expensive. It's and you can get them digitally too. That's how I bought them. But they're for
I'll go to my comic book store.
Or you go to a comic book store. It was single issue comics, but they have the trade paperbacks of them now because they're.
And is the name of the comic Die, D-I-E.
D-I-E.
So if I go ask somebody that's a comic person and we're like, hey, I'm looking for these, they're going to point me to a shelf that says they're over there. Okay,
yeah, so D-I-E, it's
book.
from Image Comics. It's just called
I love
Die.
Image. Image is great.
It's a horror fantasy comic book about role-playing games. Yeah.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Influenced by the Portal fantasy and litRPG literary genres. This is all it's all coming together. It's all coming together.
I'm going to get you into litRPG. Yeah, I've been trying. I keep sending you books.
I just finished a book. I started another one, but
well, you're doing all the Forgotten Realms ones, so I haven't been able to slip in some of the good litRPG ones yet.
Now my reading is really coming down to just game books that I buy.
Yeah.
Like I don't even read like just fiction anymore. I just read game books. But speaking of games, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, what's happening in the world of Lucian?
Whew. So we got a lot going on in the world of Lucian's gaming. Dungeon of the Mad Mage did happen on Tuesday, and we are down to the 12th level of the Mad Mage's dungeon. We've been through a lot of crazy levels, lots of drow, and I know we've talked about before in the show that we spoil a little bit of this just because, you know what, you can go play it if you want and your DM can change it slightly. And I know you've been dying to run this drow mini campaign, short session mini series, and I was like, boy, if Jordan just grabbed the middle section of this
and use that
and played that, had somebody run them through it, or you ran your players through it, I think you'd have a great time because it's exactly the houses of drow fighting amongst each other and getting into it, and would fit right in with some of the stuff you've
talking about. I own Dungeons. Really cool. I haven't read it yet, but I'll read it.
And so now we're moving.
I'm not against stealing.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, me neither.
In the sense that I pull things into my game, I should say.
We recycle. We're recyclers is all. But I feel like now I think we're moving past that little layer, that substrata in the rock that's similar. As Dungeon of the Mad Mage, different levels kind of have a theme to them, and then there's another set, and there might be... I think we're finally getting down to another one that seems nice and cool and spooky. We're getting a little bit of a... I want to say like Ravenloft feel. Like I think what's doing it is that there's fog on the floor at knee level everywhere, and you can kind of blow it away, but then it just comes right back as if it's living, and you can't permanently get rid of it, kind of thing. So it's making moving through the dungeon really weird, and we're all having that kind of, you know, searching through Ravenloft, searching through that kind of area vibe that you find if you go play those adventures too. And so that's been pretty fun. We're at 12th level or 13th level, I think now, because I'm a 7th level fighter, 6th level cleric of the Twilight. I am loving the Twilight subclass to death. I've modeled it after Moon Knight, which finished up, and I love the Moon Knight series. No matter what anybody else says or what anybody's critiques or criticisms, I loved it. Loved every bit of it. I watched it 2 times now all the way through. I'm probably going to watch it a 3rd time all the way through. I love Moon Knight to death. And so I've modeled my character after that, and the Twilight Cleric fits really well with that. So that's been good. But I went to the game store after we were done on Saturday. We were free. And I thought, I'm going to go look at that slipcase that we just talked about. And instead... I grabbed something we've been talking about quite often.
Ooh. Oh, is that the smaller version?
Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Is that the pocket? Yeah.
Edition of the core rulebook.
Pathfinder 2.
I bought the pocket edition of the Player's Advanced Guide.
Okay.
Lots more classes and stuff in here. I bought the Game Mastery Guide, which is building campaigns and things, pocket edition.
I have the Pathfinder 1 Game Mastery Guide. It is just great for fantasy games. Like there's so many great tables in there that apply to anything. That's why I bought it, because I'm like, I'm not going to play Pathfinder immediately, but like this is an amazing resource.
I could steal this stuff, spells or magic items and things like that, encounter stuff. Mm-hmm. Then I got their first Beastery book. They have another one out, and they had it there, but I thought I'll just go with one to start with. Pocket edition. These are really good. High quality, glossy paper. Great art. I love the layout.
I like the sides of them where they have like not the size, the side.
The side.
It has, yeah. So you can see like, oh, this is where the monk is, or this is where this is. Like, it really helps you navigate a little bit. So
and I love it.
Clever.
So I got all those pocket edition, but not to be outdone, I thought, well, okay, let's at least get one regular size Book of the Dead.
You've been talking about that book.
It's so good. There's so many cool things in here because it's not just about the dead you fight. It's also the dead you could play in your campaign. It's also the dead that you could summon or be pets for you or be companions for you. It's also somebody who hunts dead or uses the powers to do things and has a dead feel to it. So it's like everything that encompasses all of the things you could think of in the Book of the Dead. There's an adventure in here. There's monsters in here. There's
I told you just got to go buy those books. Got to go read them.
So good.
I'm surprised you didn't get it digitally though. But
so here's the thing. The one thing I didn't buy yet was an adventure, because now I want to take all this as I'm reading it and run an adventure. I'm going to buy an adventure on Roll20.
Can I be in your adventure?
Absolutely. Yeah. I got to learn the rules. But
we'll all learn together. That's the point of RPGs.
So far, it's been easy to understand because they're still very Dungeons and Dragons similar.
Yeah.
But it definitely has some things that are different. The 3 action thing per round
I
is
like
kind
that.
of cool.
Yeah.
I liked how they described their night vision and dark vision is different. Mm-hmm. They have a difference to how that works and what goes on with that. So I like that there's subtle differences that you will feel like you're playing a different. But man, the character options in here. You're gonna if I say, Jordan, roll up a character for a campaign, you are gonna be stuck, completely locked with the amount of choices you have to build. Oh my god, what am I gonna build? What am I gonna make? So really cool. I still want the character builder, and I know you sent me the one.
Yeah, and I haven't
Nexus.
Tested that, but yeah, Nexus.
I still go to Nexus and check. The minute it's up, I know I want to be on there building a bunch of cool characters just to try out and stuff. So I was super excited about that.
No, I think it's time for us to take a dip into Pathfinder. That'll be fun.
It's reading really good, and I was kind of texting you and even just sending messages throughout the week. Each thing I was reading, it got me more and more excited. Yeah. Similar like what you talk about. You start to read one of your game books, and it starts to draw you in.
Numenera, like, Invisible Sun. Cool. I'm like... 1,000 ideas where you're like, I want to run a game so bad. This is so cool. So
this is doing the same thing for me right now. It's been really good. I read it, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I just grab a piece and go, oh, I wonder how initiative's done. Or I go and I look and I'm like,
I'll have to reread.
Let's read the conditions and stuff.
I have my copy. And I think I have PDFs. Like I did a Humble bundle.
I think I bought all the PDFs too.
Yeah. So I probably have all of most of the original Pathfinder and probably a bunch of Pathfinder 2 PDFs.
Yeah, I think I bought them all at one point. You said
I will probably be good to play in a game. So
really good. Yeah, so I think that's definitely
he's freaking out. Zris really wants us to play Pathfinder. That's who you do the Pathfinder news for.
Yes.
Zris is our token Pathfinder person who loves it, so that's great.
And so the book that was released for this month was the Book of the Dead, that for the Pathfinder fans in chat. This is the one that everybody's been raving about. Lots of good videos out there about people talking about it. I think it's a fantastic book, the parts I've read so far. I recommend it. Awesome. And then they've got more adventure paths are coming out for the rest of this month. And then I was thinking, I forget what their next one is that they've talked about. But as I was on the Paizo site, I saw something that I think Jordan should have, and they sell a life-size foam replica of a kobold.
Right.
Which is
that's cool.
3 feet high, painted, life-size. I think you should own one of these. You should look this up on Paizo's website and buy yourself a
I have a short kobold already in my home.
Yes.
His name
and your
is
son
Oliver.
could beat up on it and could have adventure. Imagine the adventures he could have with a foam replica of a kobold that's the same size as him as he runs around with his plastic sword or
there you go.
Whatever sword you make. Maybe give him a real one. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to learn sometime, right?
Yeah. I mean, he could be attacked at any point by vampires, werewolves, or anything, so he needs to be ready. So, and not to be, I mean, I'm taking up all the time here. We're going to have to hear about your stuff too. Something else came in the mail.
Literally, there were people in chat asking about this.
Anime 5e. So from Dicekama, they've done. They did a book that was like what was it? Big Eyes, Little Mouth, but it was called like BML BE or whatever the acronym is. They had other games out before, but then they decided to do a 5e kind of version of how could you play animes, all the cool animes you could think of, but use 5e rules. Now, I'm going to tell you, this, from what because I'm reading so much Pathfinder at the moment, I've only skimmed this. This is the craziest...
Oh, big eyes, small mouth. That's what you're thinking of, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And usually you only see the acronym, so it's usually
BES.
Yeah. So you don't really see the whole thing. They change 5e into a point buy system where everything has points associated to it, so that when you're trying to figure out how you're going to build your character, you have a set number of points, and you might spend points on things that you would have gotten out of like a D&D character class or a D&D character race or a D&D character, any of the things that your background, any of those things you can think of that you write down on your sheet, they gave it a point value and says, if you take that on this character that you're building here, you've used this much point value. So, you have advantage on initiative rolls. That's a point value. You have dark vision. There's a point value associated to that.
Because, you're going to build a custom character. It kind of makes sense. There's not, like, elves to choose from,
Right. And so they really lean into this idea of points. And so I've never seen anybody change the 5e system this much, but still enough to be that's 5e's there. You still see the normal kind of initiative, the round is the same, those kinds of things, but they've expanded on it in such a way that it's definitely very different. Lots of cool artwork. I haven't dove into anything but a little bit of kind of the player side of it, and there's creatures and class combinations, and the races they give you are like Archfiend and Blink Beast and Demon Naga, Fairy, half dragon, half troll. You can be a slime or a satyr. And they show pictures of all the types of things. Like when they say orc, they show you the quintessential kind of anime orc that you've seen in anime. Or,
that's cool.
And the battles and stuff. Very cool. Came with a bookmark, came with a poster, came with a DM screen, and a set of rule books. And eventually I'm going to get to that one also and see what this looks like to try to play, or what this looks like to try to build a character at some point, and probably take maybe one that we like and we are very familiar with, maybe something from like My Hero Academia.
Take an anime that we all know.
Like a Black Clover, or I'm thinking all these other cool, animes that we could go and say, okay, let's take this character. Can we make it in this system? Does this system let me do that thing?
So people at my rehearsal, they've been talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. Have you heard of that anime?
Maybe. I don't think I've watched it, but I think I've seen the name.
Apparently it's all magic, and they do curses with their words or something. I'm supposed to watch it. Apparently it's really cool. So,
but we could also do maybe even like Lotus Wars. We were talking about that anime way back too, was like one of the older style anime D&D. Perfect. So we could even see what those characters might look like in that. So that's a future thing. I'm reading that, but as I get through my all this cool Pathfinder goodness, similar to like you were going through your Eberron goodness, and similar to like you were going through your Invisible Sun goodness.
Yeah.
This is what's got me.
No, you start reading and then it's just a rabbit hole. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so. I've got a million ideas for campaigns for sure. What did Jordan do with his time away?
Yes. Steve, thank you for the donation. And also, Moa Peach, thank you for the other donation. You guys are being very generous. That's nice of you.
Eberron game.
Yeah. I went to a wedding, and so I was gone. And I have been in rehearsal a lot.
Yep. Refer back to the front of the show for descriptions on
So because of all of that, I did not get any games done, and I've been memorizing lines. Unfortunately, we have to change the day that we play our games, but we had to so DM Nathan is running a game, but we have to change the date that we're playing, and we're currently playing on Thursdays, and this is in my favor because I have rehearsals on Thursdays. So we're trying to move it to Sundays. I was hoping that they would move it to Sundays earlier so that I could play while I'm in rehearsal. But they said that is not going to work out for some of the other players. So I have been to the first game, and I have not played for the last 2 sessions, which is really sad. And this is my Artificer Gunslinger that's got 2 wands, and I like, it's so much fun, and I've been having a lot of fun. Well, I think about him a lot. It's just a fun character.
Theory crafting.
Because we played once, but like I love the I don't know, gritty like gunslinger. Like I've never thought I would want to play an artificer, but I really am digging it. So I probably won't be able to play that until June when we move to Sundays, sadly. I bought 3 zines recently. Witchburner, which is a system neutral OSR kind of thing about like it's more of like a setting, like witches and stuff. Willow, which is another one that is like a cursed forest, if I'm remembering. It's like the willow tree cries and causes sorrow, and so it's something about that. And then Old School Essentials has a zine that they've done 2 previous issues. There was an issue 0 if you backed the Kickstarter, and then issue 1 came out, and so I bought issue 2 of the Carcass Crawler, and it has articles about the old school Renaissance, but it also has old school essential classes that you can play. So like races and classes that don't appear in the regular thing. So that's kind of how they're expanding the game, is through these zines. And then I assume at some point they'll probably like combine it and make a book. But for right now, it's just zines, and so that's fun. So I bought those 3 in physical, and they're being shipped to me right now. I finished an Eberron novel. I started a Jack Vance novel. I've just been memorizing lots of lines. I have to go to a wand decorating party today because all of us in the Puffs show have magic wands, and so we have to go decorate our wands together. So no games. It's been hard. We've been talking about the Banana Bunch with Ted and LB and Lex. Yeah. I think July we're going to try and run a game with them using their original characters from the Banana Bunch, and we're going to continue on. They've all been stuck in Sigil for however long, and now a new threat has emerged, and we're going to play through that. So, but not a lot of games. So it's kind of my life.
A couple things that you mentioned. I know we're short on time here, but I would like to. I think OSR has the best adventure names and book names. I think they're beating D&D out on naming their cool adventures and products that they put out. They always, Carcass Crawler and Witch Burner, and it's just like these are attention grabbing titles. Well,
not even that, the art. Like usually I look at the cover and I'm like, what the heck is that? And then I'll start reading a little bit.
Yeah, so I think they're really good for that. I love that.
I got one earlier called Nightland, and that was another thing where I was like, what? And it's a world that's in an eternal night. And the cover is like this dark, and it's really cool. So, and it's like, I want to run that. So
that's very cool. Number 2, Gen Con events are open now. So if you're going to be signing up for Gen Con events on last Sunday is when that event catalog opened. They go quickly. And if you think you're going to wait till like the day you get there, and then you're going to decide all the games that you want to play, a lot of those are sold out.
Not going to happen, yeah.
Jordan figured that out.
Lucian, we should try and find a game to be in together.
We should.
Because we don't do that very often. Like
we try, but it just keeps not happening. Yeah.
So,
we didn't get the same table the last time we tried it. You got to play with James, and I was at the other table.
Yeah, you were running something else. But that was destiny because I got to meet and play with James, and I was like, this is really cool.
So that's good.
But no, I need to go register some games and get something going there.
Yeah, so keep an eye out on that. So there's events, and like if you're going to do any of the, I'm assuming they'll do the big, because sometimes Critical Role's there doing things, and if you're going to sign up for that event, you want to get in early if you can.
And is that tomorrow or is that today that it goes live?
It went live on last Sunday.
Oh, last Sunday.
It's live right now. The events are there. Some more will come in.
Yeah.
But the catalog's there, and the D&D ones go fast. So it's hard to sometimes get into a D&D game, an adventure league game, if you're going to try to do like an adventure league. So definitely go out and check that out. We should coordinate a little bit of that. I'm still looking for a hotel that's closer. I'm hoping to get it, but we won't know till they start opening that up. Number 3, you might be wondering, I've got my work clothes on. I got my work hat on. We're opening the pool today, Jordan.
Very good.
We got to go and get that pool ready. Summer is here. It's pool time.
Yeah. Oh, sign-ups tomorrow, they say. You lied.
I heard
it wasn't last week.
I've already looked at the event catalog. I've already grabbed a couple.
Okay.
I'm sure of it.
I believe you. That's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
New games.
Pool is happening. Lucian's very excited. We will do a Gen Con meetup. We'll figure out something. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. And if you guys follow us on Twitter, when I was at Gen Con last time, I usually do tweet like, hey, I'm going to be here in an hour and I'm going to stay there for a couple hours. If you want to come say hi, come say hi. It's had mixed success, but
sure,
like it's kind of what I can do because Gen Con's just crazy. But we'll try to do some kind of a Saturday morning D&D
cool
Jordan
if we could do like
Lucian
a board
meetup,
game or something like after, because you know how Gen Con by about 6 o'clock the events are done. There are some that go to 8 or 9, but if you don't do that, you just go hang out somewhere.
Yeah.
We could go and just hang out somewhere, put a board game down, and then people can come and jump in a board game or something.
That's what we need to do. So that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back next week with another episode. Until then, game on, be cool. Anything else, Mr. Lucian?
Stay cool.
There you go. Bye, everybody.